This is Jack's desk. This is the desk which he worked at the end of his life.
There's a tiny exhibit of some of Jack Kerouac's last earthly possessions, tucked into an alcove at UMass Lowell's historic Allen House. The exhibit is a glimpse into the everyday life of the writer, born in Lowell on March 12, 1922. The artifacts were gifted to UMass Lowell by the Kerouac estate and came from a home that Kerouac lived in at the time of his death in 1969.
It came from Kerouac's last house, which was in St. Petersburg, Florida. Kerouac died in the house, and this material was all in his house until just about 2 years ago.
Kerouac's most famous book, On the Road, was published in 1957, and both the Beat Generation and the legend of Jack Kerouac began.
Almost immediately, On the Road was recognized as a novel of the generation. Almost immediately, Kerouac and Ginsberg and Burroughs were in Time magazine and other popular publications of the 1950s. So they were literary stars that were also cultural stars.
It is well documented that Kerouac rejected his unwelcomed celebrity and status as a cultural icon.
Despite his dedication to the confessional and the autobiographical, Kerouac died fearing that he had somehow remained largely misunderstood by critics and the reading public, that the true breadth of his work as a writer would remain forever obscured behind his status as an icon.
But there's a new perception forming of quintessential American writer Jack Kerouac.
Because of the Kerouac estate, which is here in Lowell, many of his manuscripts and notebooks and other kinds of writing have become available. And the scholarship around Kerouac has changed dramatically because of all these new kinds of work that have become available.
Kerouac has published as much posthumously as he published during his life, right?
The concept that fascinates current scholars is the fact that the renowned American writer grew up speaking and understanding in French.
He's an entry point into American culture, immediately recognizable, both in his face, what he looks like, but also in his prose style, but also in the ideas that he represents, the ideas of the open road. These have become essentially American ideals. And so for that reason, it's also interesting that he grew up speaking French, right? So, yeah.
The Unknown Kerouac, published just recently, includes some of Kerouac's writings in French, and its editor and translator recently gave a lecture on the subject at Pollard Memorial Library.
And the family spoke French at home. Kerouac did not speak English until he was 6 years old, and even at 21, Kerouac writes in a letter, he was still somewhat awkward and illiterate sounding in my speech and writings.
The idea that he's a quintessential American literary voice can't be sort of separated out from the fact that he's a bilingual speaker.
Kerouac wrote about Lowell in 5 novels and always returned to Lowell. So I think it's fitting that we have the contents of his last house here at the university.
Caroline Gallagher for LTC News.